I am Anna Callahan with Our Revolution. I'm going to get us all started today. It is great that people show up so early. Thanks so much. Good to have you here. Make sure you're going to fit in the Zoom room with everyone else. So for those of you joining on the phones, and if you are watching live on social media, please do transfer into the Zoom room. It'll be a more interactive experience, and you can go to ourrev.us/Zoom to get there. If you're here with us in Zoom, please let us know your name, where you're from, and go ahead and put your social media handles in the chat. We'd love to shout you out. We would love to connect with each other. So I know that we have some folks already showing up. We want you to help us get the word out about this so you can share this broadcast on your own social media channels. Links are going to be dropped in the chat in just a few minutes. We have Mary Huck from Cleveland, Ohio. We've got some folks from Texas. We got people jumping in the room already. So as we go on, wait a minute. Oh, Sally from Oberlin, Ohio. Cheryl from Decatur, Georgia. We got Iris from Chandler, Arizona. Clayton from Lampas, Texas. Tons of people already jumping in. You guys are the early birds. So as this call is building, I want to urge you to check out the latest edition of the Revolution Report. That's our weekly newsletter. You can get it delivered right to your email inbox every Saturday and Monday. Ooh, we just got the links for social media dropped in our chat for Twitter and Facebook. So if you read that Revolution Report in your email inbox, it is a great way to plug into our most crucial work and all the actions that we're doing all around the country. The link to the latest edition of the Revolution Report is in the chat. It's ourrevolution.com/the-latest. And again, if you are here, I can see so many people doing this already. Please tell us your name, where you're from, and please also let us know if you're part of a local OR chapter. I'm in OR Medford, Massachusetts, woohoo! So we love to shout those out as well. David from Orange, California. Another David from Howard County in Maryland. Fred from Sherman, Texas. Jen from Cocoa Beach, Florida. More people coming in right now. Thank you so much for joining. Before we get going, it is important that you remember that Our Revolution really is 100% funded by our members. That's me, that's you. We can't do it without funding. And over the past 5 years, we have really become America's leading grassroots funded political action organization. So together, all of us are fighting corporate power and working to deliver on progressive policy that will change the lives of thousands, if not millions of people. And if you're already a member, like I am, and you have your Our Revolution card, thank you so much. If you are not a member yet, now is the time to get involved. You can sign up to become a member right now by going to ourrev.us/2021member. If you're on the phone, you can just press *3 and an operator is going to take down your info. If you signed up to be a member, just tell us about it in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And for everyone who just tuned in, this is our Organized to Win broadcast every Monday night. My name is Anna Callahan. And as we count down to 8:30, go ahead and put your name, where you're from, if you're part of a local chapter, put that in the chat. So that'll be, we'll all get to know each other. You can also put your social media handles in the chat if you want. Our guests tonight are organizers on the front lines of the progressive revolution, here to talk about the strategy and the hard work that led to the wins for progressive candidates and ballot measures in Tuesday's election. And these guests include U.S. House candidate and Austin, Texas City Councilman Greg Casar, Diane Morgan from Our Revolution, Ohio, incoming Dayton City Commissioner Shanice Sloth, and guess who? Me, reporting on Massachusetts. We'll also have C.J. Boyd with the Fight for 15, and he is here to tell us about the passage of a living wage to Senator Kyrsten Sinema's hometown in Tucson, Arizona. So we are about to start tonight's show, and we are breaking down the latest news for the budget bill, the lessons and the wins from Tuesday's election. But first, let's do a couple of housekeeping items. If you have a question for our guests and you're on the phone, please press *3 and an operator can take that question down. If you're in the Zoom room, you can put your questions right in the Q&A. And we want everyone to be able to participate in our virtual community. So please hop on the Zoom call. If you're on the phones or if you're watching live on social media, you can always go to ourrev.us/Zoom. And with that, I believe it is 8:30. We are a very on-time group. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Our Revolution's National Field Director, Mike Oles.
Thanks, Anna. And I cannot wait to hear from you here in a little bit, because I heard a rumor that you guys won about 1,000 elections in Massachusetts on Tuesday night. So I cannot wait to hear the inside story about the power everybody's building in Massachusetts with Our Revolution. So I cannot wait to hear it in about a half hour. So everybody, welcome to Our Revolution's Monday Night Call. Good evening, Our Revolution Nation. My name is Mike Oles. I'm the field director of Our Revolution. I'm based here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I will be your host for tonight's call. Our co-host, though, is going to be Kara Freibaum, Our Revolution's very talented digital coordinator. And tonight, we'll talk about the lessons from Tuesday's election and the next steps in the Build Back Better budget battle. That's 5 Bs, Build Back Better budget battle, which is really a fight for jobs and against climate change. On election day, this past election day on Tuesday, I was in Minneapolis, where Our Revolution endorsed candidate Jeremiah Ellison, who was a champion of both police reform and anti-gentrification and rent control. He was in a very tough race. They came after him. But guess what? Our Revolution Nation stood strong. Jeremiah was reelected despite being challenged by some very big money. But before we go to election night and talk more about what happened on election day, let's go and talk about what's going on in Capitol Hill and the budget fight. Kara, over to you.
Thanks, Mike. So super late last Friday night, the House passed the Bipartisan Infrastructure Framework, aka BIF, but the Congressional Progressive Caucus secured assurances from corporate Democrats like Rep. Josh Gottheimer to pass the Build Back Better budget bill by November 15th, 1 week from today.
Kara, let's give some love and much appreciation to AOC, Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib. They held the line against enormous pressure and voted no on BIF to send a strong message that they're not playing around. I think everybody, I'm going to share a secret here, because I think everybody on this call knows that corporate Democrats cannot be trusted. And so what we got to do is that we got to ramp up our pressure on Congress and President Biden to deliver on his very own winning campaign promises, like universal preschool, paid family leave time, and to fight against climate change in real time. You know, these are promises that President Biden made during his campaign. He won that election. Now we're fighting our own party to get this through Congress. It's a little outrageous, but that's what we're up to at Our Revolution. And Kara, take it away.
Yeah, and Our Revolution and our allies have been pushing from the outside to get more of our priorities back in the bill, because they keep cutting them out, but we keep pushing back. Like 4 weeks of paid leave and some negotiated drug pricing, we got them back in. We also played a critical role in making sure the bill ends $86 billion worth of fossil fuel subsidies. This is critical. That's going to make a big dent and a big change. The budget framework still contains universal pre-K, investments in climate and housing, penalties for union busters, taxes for the wealthy and corporations, and other popular policies that were promised to us. Now we have a short window to get this much more inclusive Build Back Better budget bill, the 5 Bs, over the line and take the fight to the Senate.
And thank you, Kara. But let's go back and talk about Election Day 2021. And let's also talk about Election Day, because 1 year from tonight, right now, we'll be counting votes. Election Day 2022, the midterm elections, are 1 year from tonight. So polls will have just closed and made most of the big parts of the country 1 year from right now. This week, corporate Democrats and the media tried to blame progressives for their dumb and their ugly loss in the Virginia governor's race. Look, last time I checked, Terry McAuliffe was a multimillionaire corporate Democrat with little grassroots enthusiasm and no real record of progressive change to stand on. Just another rich guy. But hey, our revolution and progressives tried to warn them that wasn't going to work. And what the weird thing here is, but we know the weird thing here is that the corporate wing of the Democratic Party keeps fighting against the policy their base and the general population want the most. So they keep fighting us in the Build Back Better budget bill, and they're fighting against the things that voters want the most. The Democratic voters want the most, and the general population wants the most. And if it was not for their obstruction of the budget bill, we could have been running on $3.5 trillion worth of direct improvement in people's lives. This is not that complicated. It's outrageous what corporate Democrats have done these last several months. And Democrats now, we've got to deliver big before 1 year from tonight. Kara, take it away.
That's right, Mike. Tuesday's election results show the urgency for Democrats to take it seriously and deliver if they want to avoid a total slaughter in the 2022 midterms and beyond. Moral of the story, the corrupt force of money in politics is silencing the will of voters. Republicans outright suppress voter turnout through tactics at the polls, while corporate Democrats depress voter turnout by delivering for donors more than voters.
But know what, Kara? We got to do what our revolution has done these last 5 years and what the Bernie Sanders inspired movement always does. We got to keep on organizing. And some of us have been organizing a long time, right? But some of us since the 60s, some of us since the 70s, some of us since the 80s, right? I've been organizing really since the 90s. We got to keep on organizing. We cannot give up. And that is why our revolution, to me, is so exciting and so powerful. Our members power our revolution. We're grassroots funded, small donor funded. Every dollar goes as far as we can take it. And we're funded by grassroots supporters. So your monthly contribution, it makes all the difference. And we're at the end of the year membership drive. We want to get a couple thousand more members in the door before the end of the year so we can head into 2022 ready to kick some ass, excuse my French. So please, if you have not so far, please join our revolution as a monthly member. Your monthly donation goes a long way in helping us build this movement together. So if you're online, press *3. Press *3 if you're online, on the phone. If you're on the phone. And by the way, we have thousands of people who listen to this call on the phone every week. Press *3, become a member. If you're online, go to rrev.us/2021member. And once you sign up, tell us about it in the chat. We want to give shout outs to all of our friends here in our revolution world. So Kara, let's go deeper on our huge wins last week.
That's right. They were huge wins. And there were lots of good things that happened this past Tuesday. So elections keep showing that voters want change. They want solutions. And the Our Revolution policy vision is popular at the polls. Our Revolution candidates won by championing common sense, progressive policy platforms. So far this year, we have a 65% win rate, electing 146 new progressive champions and counting.
And look, we had a 65% win rate. We were hoping for 100% win rate, right? But that's still a pretty good average. And we didn't win them all. And I want to give a shout out to India Walton and her team. It took corporate Democrats and Republican big money coming together to defeat her. And it's outrageous what she had to go through as the primary winner in Buffalo. So much love to India Walton and her team. But I also want to tell the national media, let's zoom out of Buffalo because that was a tough race. We got close. But let's look at some other big cities. You know, I think about the Buffalo Bills, NFL cities, right? These are big cities. So Cleveland's new mayor, Justin Bibb. Our Revolution Ohio was an early endorser of Justin Bibb, who, that was a crowded field. Justin Bibb came out of that crowded field, defeated the old guard there, and now he is going to become the mayor of Cleveland, a progressive champion in the Cleveland mayor's seat. That's pretty awesome. In Cincinnati, our Revolution endorsed Aftab Praval early on before the city's primary election. Guess what? He's the mayor of Cincinnati now, and won on a bold, affordable housing plan in Cincinnati. And then let's go to Boston. Michelle Wu, she won her election on the promise of a Green New Deal, of rent control, and eliminating public transit fares. 3 major cities, all going to be helmed by the best of the progressive movement. So there you have it. We lost one in Buffalo. We're going to come back and win that next time. Boston, Cleveland, Cincinnati. Here we go. And Karen, let's talk about next steps.
Let's get fired up. Grassroots organizing works. As our Revolution Executive Director, Joseph Givargis told The Hill this week, they didn't speak in abstract terms. They didn't speak in slogans. They proposed concrete things that were going to make their cities work better.
And Kara, speaking of mayors, let's go to the nation's biggest city, New York City. Right? We got close in that mayor's race in the spring, right? Democratic city, right? So Eric Adams is going to be the mayor of New York, not our first or second choice. Guess what? There are 2 other citywide elections that got more votes than Eric Adams. So New York City progressive hero and public advocate, which is the title, Jumaane Williams was reelected as public advocate in New York City. And Brad Lander, this is kind of a nerdy job, the New York City comptroller, right? He's going to be in charge of New York City's books. A huge progressive champion. Him and Jumaane got more votes than Eric Adams. They are going to be, holding Eric accountable, but also driving the progressive agenda at a citywide level in New York City.
And on Tuesday, our Revolution candidates also clinched city council seats, from Democratic Socialist Richie Floyd in St. Petersburg, Florida, to Black Lives Matter activist Indira Shoemaker in Des Moines, Iowa. In New York City, public defender Tiffany Caban will join our newly elected progressive champions on the city council to make it the most diverse and progressive body ever in New York City. Shanice Turner Sloth, who we'll hear from soon, was elected, and Daryl Fairchild was reelected for Dayton City Commission. And 3 of our very own Our Revolution Ohio grassroots leaders won their city council races. Tristan Rader was reelected in Lakewood. Josie Moore won in Cleveland Heights. And in East Cleveland, Patricia Blohoviak defeated a 37-year-old incumbent. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, a 37-year incumbent. That guy was there for 37 years. Patricia, one of her great organizers, showed up, campaigned, and took him out. So Patricia, much love to Patricia, Josie, and Tristan. I love all these folks. And look, it gets better for progressives. When you go, let's look at ballot initiatives, right? So I was in Minneapolis on election day. Both twins of the Twin Cities, right? St. Paul and Minneapolis, both large cities that, have an affordable housing crisis like most big cities right now. They pass initiatives calling for affordable housing and rent control. So St. Paul and Minneapolis, big wins on affordable housing. And in Tucson, Arizona, there's a certain U.S. senator from Tucson, Arizona, who was born in Tucson. Her name is Kyrsten Sinema. She embarrassed the Democratic Party earlier this year when she gave a thumbs down vote on the minimum wage. So let's go to her hometown in Tucson, right? A place to help shape who she was. In Tucson, Arizona, the voters, by a huge margin, and we'll hear from CJ here in just a second, the organizer of that campaign, by a huge margin, passed a $15 minimum wage with cost of living increases built into it, with overwhelming support. I was in Tucson last month for a couple of days, knocked on a bunch of doors on this campaign. People are ready for this. So hopefully Senator Kyrsten Sinema, she hears loud and clear. People in Arizona are still pissed at her and want her to change her vote and fall in line with the Democratic majority. And despite what the mainstream media is saying, voters want police accountability. Measures for criminal justice reform passed in Austin and Cleveland. So major wins on all these issues. The media was selling something, but it ain't right. Tuesday was a big day for progressives. So let's go to the field. Let's hear from organizers in Ohio, Massachusetts, Arizona, and Texas. So Kara, give us one quick more membership plug.
Yeah, real quick, a big thank you to our members for everything they do to help get progressive candidates and policies over the finish line. All of your organizing, donating, and volunteering for Get Out the Vote efforts is absolutely critical. For those who aren't yet members, please join right now. Become a movement builder today by signing up at rf.us/2021 member. If you're joining us by phone, press *3 and an operator will take down your info. Once you sign up, tell us about it in the chat. And welcome to our revolution. Back to you, Mike.
Okay, look, I'm sorry, we're running a little bit over time, but hey, we're going to get it going. First, let's welcome Austin, Texas City Council member Greg Kassar. Greg is actually running for Congress, and hopefully 1 year from tonight, we'll be celebrating with Greg on his victory. But let's first talk about Election Day 2021. Greg, are you with us?
I am. Hey, y'all. How's it going, our revolution?
I'm doing great. Our revolution movement across the country is fired up that you're joining us. We have several hundred people on this call, a couple thousand listening, Greg. So, Greg, I've known about you for a long time because through mutual friends. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what just happened in Austin on Election Day?
So I came from movement organizing. I started out in college organizing workers in the immigrants' rights movement to push Austin City Hall to actually live up to its values. Because even though at the time it was an all-Democratic city council, we saw that a lot of times Austin's policies were not putting their money where Austin's mouth was. And so I came out of that movement organizing world, ran for city council as a 24-year-old, and alongside a broad coalition of labor and environmentalists and the activist movement, won election and became the youngest person ever elected to the Austin City Council, with the promise and the idea of really trying to do what's right at the local level and to continue building the movement here in Texas. You guys just lost me on video because I'm standing in a parking lot and the spotlight just went out, but now I just moved over to another one. Really that was, how I got into office. And since then, we've really been trying to push the envelope on really doing what is right and what the community calls for, and to partner with organizers on the ground to show what's really possible. And so for my first few years on council, we made the ask of trying to reduce the growth of the police budget just by a little bit, to invest in other services in the community. Because in Austin, just like most other cities, the vast majority of our budget goes to incarceration and policing and not to community solutions. But we could never quite get there. And then in the wake of the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and here in Austin, the killing of Mike Ramos, there were, of course, millions of people marching across the country. And in most cities, nothing truly transformational passed. But here in Austin was one of the places where we decided to take the big step. And we reallocated tens of millions of dollars away from a broken police training system to reform that system, and towards things like a new family violence shelter, or housing people experiencing homelessness, or mental health first responders, so that we could get to 911 calls in a way that could help address safety in the community, but also make sure that everyone is safe from all forms of violence, including police violence. And so we made that kind of transformational shift and showed the rest of the country what it might look like to actually start making the kinds of changes people were marching in the streets demanding. And what we quickly saw was a strong backlash from the police association and not only the local Republican Party, but the national Republican Party, to make an example of trying to shut down Austin's change. And so they put onto our ballot an initiative to force the hiring of hundreds more police immediately, stripping funding from so many other things. And we actually mounted a really powerful campaign that linked our revolution and people from the Bernie Sanders campaign and DSA alongside traditional labor unions, alongside our firefighters and our medics, alongside environmentalists, alongside the entire Democratic Party and all the components of the Democratic Party, our neighborhoods, and everybody linked arm in arm to say no. And despite being massively outspent, we were able to win more than 2-1, 69-31. We won in almost every single precinct in the city and said no, because we stood up for the actual results we delivered. That's part of what y'all were talking about earlier today, is in Austin, by that budget change, we delivered results. Austin is the biggest city in the country where if you call 911 today, you hear back, do you need fire, EMS, police, or mental health? And we could actually send mental health first responders to a 911 call. We have people who are experiencing family violence who have a bed tonight away from that violence because of that shift of funds that we made. We actually were able to deliver real new services in the community that the police association, the Republican Party were trying to take away. We were able to stand up to that and show people how change can actually look, and hopefully are modeling for the rest of the country that it shouldn't be so scary to demand change from the status quo.
And Greg, hey, I saw a comment here that kind of made me laugh. The question is, in Austin, you're making us Seattleites look bad. Look, like Austin, Seattle, Minneapolis, these great cities that are growing, that are full of newcomers and oldcomers, right? There's a real battle in these cities over the future of the city, right? Between tech bros and big money and the people who made these cities great in the first place. And so could you talk to us a little bit about, the folks who supported Prop A and tried to push this through? And really, what does that look like on the ground, overcoming the opposition of sort of the millionaire developers and the billionaire tech companies? And how do we respond as a movement, to try to keep our cities, as affordable as possible for as many people as possible?
Yeah, let's talk about affordability, but I really want to talk about that comment because, and I appreciate you writing it in, because I had friends in Seattle working, and every year I sit down with movement organizers and my staff to talk about how the year went. And usually I point to our biggest losses as some of the most important days, and sometimes in some ways, some of the best days, because that's what we can springboard back from. That's where we can learn what it is we did wrong. And it is just a step along the journey. Because just recently, there were really significant lost votes on issues of policing. In fact, there was a really significant vote just a year ago where thousands of people called in asking for not a big, another steep increase in the police budget. And we lost that vote narrowly. And that's the vote that actually set us up to be able to make the transformative change to the budget, because people were so galvanized by the loss that we were able to come back with an even bigger win. So I think of these losses as not the end of the campaign plan, but maybe a midpoint in whatever campaign plan we are running. And so I think that that's really important for us to see and for us to know. Prop A, yeah, we saw money, largely really heavily corporate money, coming from Republican car dealers, the Republican Party, and then also some major venture capitalists who were, some of them just brand new to the city, investing in criminalizing homelessness or investing in mass incarceration and these far right political causes, even if they called them quote unquote nonpartisan. And what we were able to put together was really a conversation at the doors. We were, since the day we passed our transformational budget, already working the doors, letting people know about the news stories they were going to see, the disinformation they were going to read, the ways that sometimes we had folks within the police department actually spreading some of that misinformation or people mischaracterizing what our police chief would say. And so we have to be ready for that kind of backlash. That backlash is actually a part of change. There is a really powerful Frederick Douglass quote that I'm sure everybody here has heard, which is, power concedes nothing without a demand. But right before he said that, the earlier part of that paragraph is, people that want change but don't want the discomfort or the backlash, it's like people asking for rain without clouds, or rain without thunder, or crops without having to till soil. The fact of the matter is, we know that there's going to be this backlash. We know that there's going to be this manufacturing of outrage. We should be prepared for that in our campaigns. We should be prepared for the pushback. That's part of the process, and we have to learn to defeat it. And in Austin, we showed we could defeat it by building a broad coalition across all forms of progressives, because everybody had something to lose. The police association was coming for the funding for parks. They were going to cut EMS stations. They were going to cut fire stations to fund their proposal. And we were able to build that broad coalition, because we need to win on the electoral stage as well as in our neighborhoods.
Amen. Preach it, Brother Greg. Just want to say, one of our organizer in Texas, Clayton, says, make sure we know that Greg is a member of our revolution. And Greg, you're a member who's going to take on a big challenge and run for Congress. Tell us a little bit before we wrap up tonight. Just give us what's it like being on the trail running for Congress in a race that is going to be pretty exciting to hear over the next couple months.
Yeah, I'm a proud member of Our Revolution. Y'all should sign up if you aren't already members. And I'll be running as an Our Revolution member and as a bold progressive in this newly open seat in Texas 35. And so you can check out what I'm running on at gasadforcongress.com. I dropped it there in the chat. But we're talking about Medicare for all. We're talking about good jobs. We're talking about making the transformational change that people need in a working class district that is overwhelmingly working folks and people of color. And I know that in an open seat, we'll be facing tons of corporate money and attacks. I'm used to that. If you Google me, you'll find all sorts of bad stuff. Avoid my Twitter mentions. That's where they dump all sorts of, really they just try to drag progressives, and especially young progressives and folks that might want to join the squad through the mud. And again, just like I was talking about on that No Way on A campaign, the way we win is by making phone calls, talking to people directly at their doors, and making sure that they know we're earnestly looking out for the people's interest. And I feel really confident we can win this race with y'all's support. So again, my name is Greg Casar, running for Congress, but not just for me, but really to continue to build this movement here and across the country. So thank y'all for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. We'll be in touch. And when we start doing endorsements, be looking for a phone call from us. But awesome work in Austin. Thank you so much for your leadership. And let's keep on organizing. That's what happens. Look, Greg Casar is what happens when you elect organizers to public office. They keep on fighting and fight in a smart way with a value system that never gives up. So thank you, Greg, for joining us tonight. And our Revolution Nation has a lot to celebrate, but probably nowhere should we be celebrating more tonight than what just happened in Ohio. So I'm gonna kick it back to Kara and to Diane. So take it away, Kara.
That's right. Ohio has some big wins. So let's bring up one of our superstar organizers from Ohio, Diane Morgan. And if you're on the phones, please submit a question for Diane by pressing *3. Everyone else, please put those questions in the chat below. Diane, you have been busy out in Ohio. Tell us about these progressive mayors you helped get over the finish line. 15 wins, including 3 mayors. You picked up 5 new city council seats and won a citywide ballot initiative on police reform in Cleveland. Please do spill. What is the secret to Ohio organizing?
Well, Kara, thank you so much. I do want to say, though, Greg is a tough act to follow. But last Tuesday was an amazing day. We had such great outcomes, and it's all from a lot of the work that we've been focused on over the past few months. As a result of the work of our endorsement committee, we were able to identify great candidates with shared values and that had realistic opportunities for winning. Plus, we knocked on doors, and I'd like to give a shout out to Regina, who's on the call. She was out there knocking on doors. She started with Nina and hasn't stopped, right? And we phone banked, and especially our rock star, Mary Huck, who was here on the call tonight too. She hasn't stopped, and she's continuing phone banking with us. So thank you both, by the way, and everybody else that I might have missed. But we're excited to have elected 3 progressive mayors, and they have a vision for a better, sustainable future, fighting climate change, reimagining policing, affordable housing, and participatory budgeting, which is an awesome way to bring people in to the budgeting process. And speaking of participatory budgeting, it is my pleasure to introduce Shanice Turner Sloth. Now, Shanice is a true progressive champion, and we supported her in her March primary and all the way through the general election. She came out, was a top vote getter. And let me just say, when she won in the general election, she released a statement, and in her statement, she listed one of her priorities as making sure to include participatory budgeting in the ARPA funds. So thank you and welcome, Shanice.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you for all of your leadership and the great work you're doing across the state of Ohio. It's a pleasure to be here. Hello to my All-Rev families. Good to be here. We're very excited. As Ms. Diane already mentioned, we were in fact the #1 vote getter in the commission race last Tuesday, along with my running mate, Commissioner Daryl Fairchild. And so we're very excited.
Well, also congratulations, Shanice. It's a huge win, and we're super excited to have you up there.
Thank you.
And can you tell us a little bit about the priorities that you have on the Dayton City
Sure.
City Commission?
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. I was waiting for that lead in. I didn't want to keep rambling, but nonetheless, as Ms. Diane already mentioned, one of our priorities going into this race is that we want to make sure that we are encouraging and pushing a participatory budget with the rescue funds that we have coming into the Dayton community. The city of Dayton will be receiving $138 million. And so we want to make sure that the residents in the city of Dayton, they're at the table, they're in the room, they have an opportunity to let their voices be heard, and to make sure that we're pushing those issues forward, those concerns forward. The other thing that we're looking at on top of that is to make sure that, again, we're addressing our housing crisis that we have in the city of Dayton. Across the country, everyone knows that that is in fact a crisis that we're dealing with. We have homelessness that we're dealing with in the city of Dayton, as well as the issue of really tackling affordable housing. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at that bold progressive policy to make sure that we're addressing housing poverty. The city of Dayton, I don't want to bore anyone with the dire statistics of where we are in the city of Dayton, but the city of Dayton is actually noted as one of the most impoverished municipalities in the country. So that is my focus, is to make sure that we're reducing our poverty rate in the city of Dayton, on top of making sure that we are providing housing opportunities and make sure that we are building our infrastructure up. I'm very excited about the Build Back Better bill that has now reached the president's desk and should be signing soon. And so again, we're just making sure that we have our eyes set, ears to the ground, and making sure that, again, that we know and how, in fact, the city of Dayton will be impacted by those dollars. And I'm just really glad to see that the residents in the city of Dayton, they spoke up, they stood up, and they let it be known that they want to have those common sense, bold, progressive policies at the forefront by electing myself and Commissioner Daryl Fairchild to make sure, in fact, that we're pushing those issues forward. And again, I think it's just, we're just dealing with some challenging times in the city of Dayton, in the sense that we've never really truly recovered from the economic downturn in the 2008, 2010. And so I do believe that right now is better days, brighter days for the city of Dayton. And then we cannot negate the fact that dealing with the effects of the global pandemic, it really exacerbated the current conditions in the city of Dayton. But again, it is my belief and my hope that with myself and Commissioner Daryl Fairchild elected into office, we're really going to make some transformative changes in the city of Dayton. We have the opportunity to do so with the additional funding coming into our area, as well as we've seen an uptick in an increase in our Department of Housing and Urban Development funds when you talk about the CDBG dollars, home dollars. So again, my background as a former city of Dayton employee, I really understand the inner workings of government, and I am ready to roll up my sleeves on day one to really do the work for the residents in the city of Dayton. So I'm overjoyed. I am elated. I am just, I am just humbled by the numbers and by the response that we received and the amount of support that we received from the residents in the city of Dayton. And I may add that we received support from not only the residents in the city of Dayton, from the state of Ohio, as well as 4 other states across the country. So we have more than 200 volunteers that really helped us push our message out. And again, our message was concrete. It resonated with the voters. These are common sense, bold, progressive policies and practices that the residents in the city of Dayton, they want to know and they want to see that they're those who are in office and those leadership roles are really pushing the envelope and pushing those ideas forward.
We can't wait to see what you do first. I was reading a little bit about your race, and I saw that the Democratic Party endorsed the other candidates, and yep, the progressive message won. Can you tell us a little bit about what you think excited voters and what separated you from those candidates, and how that endorsement played a role, maybe?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. So let me just say this, and I really want to really pull on this thread, because the simple fact that the voters in our community, they know me, they know Commissioner Fairchild, and this was my third time running. So third time is a charm. But with all that being said, is that again, we did the work. We knocked doors. We knocked doors in the rain. We knocked doors in the dead heat of the summer. We made it known, and we literally were any and everywhere to make sure that, in fact, we had that voter one-on-one contact. The other thing is that we left no stone unturned. We made phone calls. We did text banking, any and everything that you think of that could be done on a campaign. We did it. And again, we didn't shy away, or nor did we take for granted the fact that we were the #1 vote getter in the primary. We just continuously did the work. And again, our message was concrete. We didn't give general ideals. We really had conversation with voters. We went to the doors. We have been doing the work for a number of years. And I think that that's important. Oftentimes people think that you can throw, your name on the ballot, you can hit a couple of doors and have some digital media across the various social media outlets, but you really have to, and I'll have to take this quote from our chairman of the Democratic Party here in the Montgomery County, is that what's the fire in your belly? What are you passionate about? What keeps you up at night? And that's what voters want to know. They want to know, what is your passion? They don't want to see or hear someone who's just chasing the title. But what are you going to do? How are you going to make and improve the community better for everyone? And again, that's exactly what our message was speaking to, is how we're going to improve the lives of the residents in the city of Dayton and the people in our community. They're just simply tired of broken promises. And to be honest, we, for a number of years, we've had those in positions who simply just put Band-Aids over lacerations, and the people in this community, they want to stop the bleeding. They want to see some concrete ideas. They want to see bold progressive policy that's pushed forward. And again, they know myself and Commissioner Fairchild, our heart is in it. We've been doing the work for a number of years, and we're just really excited, and we're just, ready to do the work. And we just want to keep that momentum going into, the earlier guest mentioned, just building that coalition of folks. It doesn't stop with just the candidacy or the election of myself or Commissioner Fairchild, but how are we building that bench? How are we building that coalition of folks to get them ready for the next 4 years or for the next office? We got to make sure that we are building that bench and definitely passing on the best practices and really understanding some of those, those losses, and learning from those losses, and galvanizing and building so that we continue to build that progressive movement across the state of Ohio and across the country.
Well, we are very excited to see you on the Dayton City Commission, and cannot wait to see what you do up there. No more Band-Aids. We are ready to organize.
Yes.
For bold solutions.
There you go. Thank you.
And I'm going to send it over to Mike to talk about some big wins in Massachusetts too.
Hey, thanks, Kara, and thank you, Commissioner-elect Shanice. Cannot wait. I'm about 90 minutes from Dayton, so can't wait to work with you in our revolution in Dayton. Yeah. So let's go to another. So we have Ohio and Texas, really doing well, but Massachusetts. Could we get some praise from Massachusetts? 45, right? 45 election wins. Is that right?
34 out of 49.
34, sorry, 34, still pretty darn good. So Anna Callahan is the Our Revolution Massachusetts organizer, a veteran organizer who's been organizing a long time, doing a lot of great work. Anna, tell us about Election Day across the great state of Massachusetts.
Absolutely. So first, a long time means since Bernie. So I started organizing Bernie's 2016 campaign, never stopped. And here in Massachusetts, of course, Michelle Wu became the mayor of Boston. And if you read articles about her win, a lot of people talk about the fact that this was coalition building that she had done over many, many years, paying off in an election win. So these are really, a long process that she had of doing exactly what progressives need to be doing, which is building alliances with many different marginalized groups and building power among all of us who do not have power. And when we organize like that, when we build power with each other, that's when we have the power of the people and we can combat the power of money. So the other thing to talk about in Massachusetts, though, is that we ran 49 candidates in 6 different cities. Now, if you do the math, that's about 8 candidates per city. And we won 69% of those candidates. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of a model of organizing that we do here in Massachusetts. It's been really successful for us. We have some very strong chapters that are running a lot of candidates and winning. I happen to be in Medford, where we ran 8 candidates. We ran 9 candidates. We won 8 out of 9. We now have a majority on the city council. We have a majority on the school board. And that's kind of what's happening in cities around Massachusetts. When essentially what we do is, these OR groups tend to be very dedicated to getting majorities on their city councils and school committees. They put together a platform. So the OR chapter itself has a platform, and that is something that the candidates have to agree to. We run a lot of candidates from within our organizations. So we look inside of our organizations and with the coalitions that we worked with to put that platform together. And those are the people who are running. Of course, you got to do a super strong door knocking campaign. So we have very dedicated canvassers, phone bankers. We're doing it for 6 months or more before the election. We'll get 20, 30 people at the canvases, as we get up to election day and get closer to get out the vote. So the candidates in those cities are all supporting each other as well. So they're not just running on their own. They're working together. They're supporting each other. And really, our organizations, the ones that do the best, are sort of building a brand, right? So in Medford, Our Revolution Medford, we knock on the doors and we say, have you heard of the 9 candidates that have been endorsed by Our Revolution Medford? We talk about, the group hard almost before the candidates, right? And then, what's amazing is that in Medford, at least, I know these candidates, they really get a ton of support at the city council meetings. So everybody kind of shows up on Zoom and we're all on Slack talking about what's happening. And then we provide them with support that they need in order to get these policies passed. And these elected officials, they are part of our OR chapter. They show up to the meetings. They're some of the people who are really dedicating time to the organization, and they feel very attached, more attached to Our Revolution, to our Revolution chapters than they do to a lot of other organizations, to pretty much any other organization. It's a really exciting time here in Massachusetts, and we're going to use these wins to get more chapters started in other parts of the state and get more progressive candidates elected.
Thank you, Anna. And hey, before we get going, I just want to give a quick shout out to some of the donors who signed up tonight. So Rona, Jan, and Leonard, thank you so much for your donation tonight, because it allows us to get 100 Anna Callahans out in the field organizing. And what we did in Massachusetts and what we've done there the last couple of years is pretty remarkable. Really vying for mayorships and majorities on city councils and school boards. And Anna, this turf right near Boston is it's struggling with affordable housing, struggling with a lot of issues that affect everyday working class voters. Can you tell us about some of the issues that are most on people's hearts and minds as they show up and vote and vote for these revolution candidates?
Absolutely. I think we all know what the issues are. So in terms of local stuff, it's always going to include housing. We have a terrible housing crush and really skyrocketing housing prices, both rental and the purchase prices here in Eastern Massachusetts in the Boston area. Of course, police reform is also a big deal out here. People care about it very much as we're knocking on doors. It's very important. And, in our platforms, that is absolutely part of these platforms. It's something that we will talk about at the doors. So that's very important to people. Those are definitely at the local level, some of the really important issues that people care about. Green space and ensuring that we, maintain sort of our urban canopies is also really important. People care a lot about that, and they care about making sure that our cities remain sustainable. Also that we, protect the immigrants that are coming here. A lot of these issues that we talk about at the national level, they affect us at the local level. And so these are all issues that, we run on. Infrastructure. We have as many potholes as anybody. I can't believe I ride my bike down the street and it's like filled, you can't even avoid the potholes. It's crazy. So being able to fund our infrastructure and being able to fully fund our public schools. There was in Medford, they really realized that hunger in schools was a very serious problem. And so during COVID, the school committee in Medford with the OR Medford endorsed candidates on it, one of the first things they did was they made sure that all school lunches would be free during COVID. And then, of course, COVID policy was also really important as well.
And Anna, so you're talking tonight, one of the themes I've heard is concrete solutions to real problems. And that's exactly what you all are doing in Massachusetts and what Shanice is doing in Dayton and what our revolution is doing across the country. So awesome work. Cannot wait for the next election cycle when we pile up hopefully hundreds of more wins in Massachusetts across the country. So, hey, I'm going to talk about concrete wins and improving people's lives. We're going to go to Tucson, Arizona, where this huge $15 minimum wage increase. So, Kara, take it away.
Sorry, I was on mute. But last but not least, we have CJ Boyd, campaign manager of Tucson Fight for 15, who helped deliver a ballot measure for a citywide $15 minimum wage in the hometown of Senator Kirsten Sinema on Tuesday, who we all remember Sinema's curtsy as she eagerly voted down a shot at the $15 minimum wage in the Senate last spring. CJ, how satisfying was it to bring home a $15 minimum wage right in Sinema's backyard on Tuesday? And what does this mean in the fight for 15?
Well, thank you everybody for having me, Kara, Mike. Obviously it's fantastic. We were really pleased. Election night, it looked like we had about a 65% and to the 35 no's on our Prop 206. The thing about Sinema is that, it was in a way as like a perfect metaphor that like we cannot sit around and wait for these corporate Dems to do anything for us. We got to do it ourselves. And so we had already started this process of putting it on the ballot, writing the bill. It was well along its way, but that moment where we thought, oh, well, we're trying to pass this locally here in Tucson, but it might actually pass federally. And of course we'd be thrilled if it did. But that famous curtsy and thumbs down just really kind of made us all say, you know what, forget about it. Just let's do this ourselves because they can't be trusted and can't be expected to do anything for the people. So it was, like I've been loving hearing the stories from all around the country. I have to say I'm a very focused person. I tend to keep my head really in one direction, and I've been so inside this campaign. I hadn't really been following some of the things happening nationwide, and it was really exciting election night to hear about other things happening in Ohio and Massachusetts and Texas, and it's fantastic. So yeah, we're glad to be one more chip in that. I will say, as much as I'm thrilled, this I always say, we really have to be working towards a living wage, and whatever that means in any given place, Tucson is a relatively inexpensive town, and 15 is a living wage if you don't have kids. It is not a living wage for everybody even here in Arizona, and certainly not in some other parts of the country. So I think we need to keep fighting for 15 and keep fighting beyond 15. And really, really ideally, we need to be pushing towards a living wage and figure that out for any given place.
Definitely. Absolutely. And 15 as the floor for wages in this country has massive, massive support across the spectrum. How do we keep overcoming the corporate spin to let the voice of the majority be heard?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's hard, at least here locally. And again, this is the thing. If we're looking at the federal level, it's a whole other set of challenges, because you've got folks like Sinema and Manchin who obviously don't represent the people. They represent their donors. They're going to do that. As long as you have both Republican and Democratic Party, where the majority of folks are in that category and really not doing what the people want, but just whatever their donors want, it's going to be really rough. So, I mean, what we decided here is this is a local ballot initiative. Not every state has the ballot initiative as part of its constitution, but if you do, I mean, look into it. The thing is, it's really hard to convince people that giving poor folks more money is a bad idea when they're experiencing poverty directly, or people that they know are directly affected. And so, we had opponents, just like in any campaign. There were people trying to say no, but they really didn't have a leg to stand on. They couldn't really say anything. They would say, oh, well, normally we'd agree with it, but it's not the right time because the pandemic. And all we have to say is, yeah, it's bad time for everyone, including employees, not just employers. I mean, everybody's having a rough time, and everybody needs a living wage, regardless of what else is happening. And they couldn't really say anything that was effective towards the voters. And here we really saw that they spent money on it. They put up signs around town, no on 206. That was our proposition number. But I think they even knew by the end, it's just like, this is going to win because it's very, very popular. I mean, Tucson is a fairly, I'll say, liberal city anyway. And this has become so mainstream within even the Democratic Party. There's wide support, not just, it's no longer a super, leftist idea to give a living wage. So we've seen that come into the mainstream. And I think Bernie has been a big part of that Bernie and folks that he's inspired in the last 3, 4, 5 years have really pushed this into the mainstream, so that it really wasn't us coming away from the left saying this. It's a very reasonable, very modest thing to say people should have enough money to just be able to afford to live and feed themselves. So, I mean, there's more work to be done. Our next step here in Tucson, we're looking at how we can expand this, maybe use some of this momentum to at least get our county. Our county is Pima County. It's about 1 million people, and Tucson is about half the population. I'm going to put this in the chat just to throw it out there. And if anybody's in Pima County, feel free to call one of your supervisors. We're hoping that we can talk to the supervisors here in Pima County and have them pass a similar ordinance, not necessarily go through the ballot initiative process again, but that they have the power to simply extend this minimum wage increase to the county line. And we're hoping to do that. So I'll put a county supervisor's phone number and email in the chat. Feel free to use that. But yeah, I mean, we just have to keep we have to keep doing it. We have to keep pushing. This was a very local effort, and we want to see statewide and countywide and citywide and every level keep pushing for a living wage.
Yeah, thanks. And our members definitely want to get involved. So definitely put those links in the chat, and let us know if there's any ideas on how to expand this fight into their cities as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'll also put my email in here if folks have questions, if they're interested to see if they can do it locally. I'm happy to answer questions. I mean, states differ in terms of what the laws are, but we were the second city here in Arizona to do this. Flagstaff did it in 2016, and that was a big inspiration for us. And they took also the risk of doing it when it hadn't been done here to see if they could pull it off, because there's here in Arizona, there's always this, and as in a lot of states where we're in a very, say, blue city, but it's a purple state, and it's right now the state legislature is dominated by the Republicans, and so there's always this question of if you do something progressive in your town, will the state try to undo it at the state level? And the state did try to do that with Flagstaff, and so we're lucky that they did that and persevered, and at the end was able to, they were able to come out ahead and still maintain that, and they've now been at 15 since last year, and they're like theirs has a cost of living adjustment in it so that it goes up a little bit every year on top of that.
Well, thanks for the insight, and we're so glad that you could stick it to cinema and pass a $15 minimum wage in our hometown. Exactly. Thumbs down to her. Mike, I'll pass it to you.
Yep, awesome work, CJ. I got to know CJ a little bit when I was in Tucson last month, and just love the work of that campaign that CJ's organizing. So just an amazing group of organizers tonight on this call, and that's why our revolution is so special. We're connecting in a national conversation. We can zoom down to the very local level. We can zoom up to the Capitol Hill, and we can make a difference together at all levels. So just an awesome call tonight. And we had a couple donations come through new members. So thank you for that tonight. Again, one last chance tonight, become a member of our revolution, become a recurring donor. I'm seeing some questions like, hey, I'm already a recurring donor. Is that okay? Absolutely. Once you're recurring, you're all good. Just keep on organizing, right? And thank you for your support. And yeah, one last chance tonight, become an Our Revolution member. Shout out to Leonard and Jana and everybody who joined tonight. Thank you again. ourrev.us/2021 member. Become a card carrying, dues paying member of Our Revolution. And then lastly, just we're building progressive community across the country. And next week, November 17th, next week's gonna be a huge week for American democracy. Not only do you have the Build Back Better budget bill, the 5 Bs being voted on next week. Hopefully, if the people's fingers weren't crossed. We're also going to be out in the streets en masse fighting for voting rights. I can't believe it's already mid-November. We're already through the 2021 election cycle, and we haven't passed voting right reform. How insane is that, right? Like, why don't we have an end to gerrymandering? Why don't we have an end to big money in politics? It's because two senators we've talked a lot about over the last couple of weeks. This Wednesday, a week from Wednesday, November 17th, we're going to be gathering up in Washington, D.C. If you're in the area, if you want to come to town, please join us. It's going to be a mass action Wednesday, November 17th. We're going to meet at the Capitol Hilton in downtown D.C. at 9:30. I'll be there. Our whole team will be there. Let's make this a big show-up day for Our Revolution and the progressive movement when it comes to voting rights. So coming up November 17th, join us there. Thank you for all your support tonight, everybody. I'm fired up, ready to go. Progressives are on the march. We're not defeated. We're united, and we're organizing, and we're going to change this country. So let's we end our calls with our chant. When we organize, we win. When we organize,
we win.
When we organize,
we win.
We win.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week. Keep on organizing. Good night, everybody.